Okay, I think we're live. I would really appreciate if somebody would let us know if you can hear us, you can see us.
We got the confirmation.
Yeah, Krzysztof, thank you. Great. Okay, so today we're going to talk about GitLab a little bit more. Our speaker is Péter Bozsó, solution architect at GitLab, and his role is to help partners to work with customers. Péter shows the possibilities that GitLab gives and help companies to get into better organization on daily basis, daily work with help of this tool. And this is why today's topic is from idea to production with GitLab. In this webinar, Péter will show a demo of GitLab, but before that, we'll have small agenda and small idea what GitLab is. He will show how to implement your idea to this platform, where to start, what are the possibilities. During this presentation, if you have any kind of questions, please put them into Q&A section. I will try to catch them and ask Péter to answer them. And at the beginning, we're planning to have this small Q&A section. And from the organization part, I think this is it. Péter, did I forget about something?
No, that was perfect. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I give you the audience.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carolina, for the introduction. I think it was perfect. So, as Carolina said, my name is Péter Bozsó. I'm a solutions architect from GitLab. I am from Hungary. Right now, I'm based in Austria. And yes, my job is essentially supporting our partners on the technical side of our partnership with GitLab and to work with customers. And yeah, today I would like to do this little demonstration for you. So this session will be more an actual hands-on live demo that I will do for you, the audience, rather than a presentation. So I will have a couple of slides at the beginning, but that won't be the focus. The focus will be really like looking at GitLab. How do you work with GitLab? How you can get started to work with GitLab in a project, and just how to get from idea to production in more or less in an hour. That would be the point here, how you can do that yourself. And before starting, just disclaimer. So I have my webcam here. I'm looking at this screen, so I won't be looking at you, but I guess that's not such a big problem because my face is not so beautiful and you are curious more about the content. So just saying that I'm not looking at you, it's not because I don't care about you. It's just, this is how it's all set up. And yes, please, whenever you have any questions or anything is not clear, or you see something in this demonstration that's more interesting to you, please don't hold back. Ask away in the chat or in the Q&A section. As Carolina said, she will monitor these forums and notify me if I get too much caught up in the presentation or in the demo. So please make it as interactive as possible. I will try to make it as interactive as possible, but of course, I need your cooperation. So please don't hesitate to interrupt me. The point here is to have this demo for you, for the audience, not for me. I already know this stuff. So, so let's just jump in. As I said, disclaimer, a little bit of talk at the beginning, just a couple of slides, not to bore you, just to get started, set the context, what I will be demoing, what we are talking about here. And what is GitLab, just on the very high level, for those of you who might not know, or for those of you who might know but not entirely sure about your knowledge of GitLab. So let me start with that. But before I talk about GitLab itself, let me just set the scene for GitLab. So what's the point of GitLab? Why we at GitLab, the company GitLab? So the company is called GitLab, who is developing the solution, the software GitLab, which you can buy as a customer. So why we, GitLab, the company, thinks GitLab has a place in the whole DevOps industry? What do we see as the use case for GitLab? So what we see with many, not just our customers, but overall in the industry landscape, that a lot of companies are creating their own DevOps tool chains. We call it, at GitLab, we call it DIY or do-it-yourself DevOps. And this is still how the bulk of the industry looks like or works like. So you have many different, not you personally, but many companies have different tools in their tool set, and they work in a way that they integrate together these tools, setting up as we call it, a tool chain. So literally a chain of tools. And we see that this setup works. I would be dishonest to say that it doesn't work. Obviously, a lot of companies work like this. It works awesome for them. But we at GitLab, we identified a couple of pain points, so to say, a couple of weaknesses with this setup. So as the slides are saying, it requires a custom support for orchestration and integration. What do I mean by that? So let's imagine you have, as on the slide, I think this diagram shows perfectly, you have many disparate tools, and in order to work with them, you need some kind of integration between them. So let's say you keep your source code in one application, you do your pipelines in another. Obviously, they need to talk to each other one way or another. A lot of times it's supported by the tools themselves, so you don't need to spend too much time with integrating them, but sometimes the integration is simply not there, in which case you as the user of these tools need to implement the integration yourself, which I assume all know is just software development as well. So essentially you spend time with maintaining your tools instead of using your tools to create software, or you need to pay another company for that, so to do that for you, maintaining the integration between the tools, which again, costly, obviously. It also makes hard for organizations to measure their transformation. What do I mean by that? It's a little bit abstract, but on the technical level, so to say, or on the day-to-day level, what does that mean? You have many different tools. Each of the tools are storing data in their own databases. And let's say you are a project manager or a CTO or somebody who needs to see what's happening inside your projects, inside your organization. Then you need the help of somebody, or you need to do it yourself, to pull together all this data, formalize them, put them into the same shape, and create some reports based on this data to see, okay, we spend most of our times with a good example of bug fixing, or our pipelines are really slow, and because of that, we're losing development velocity. So to identify these bottlenecks, these places where you can optimize your tool chain or your workflow, you need to work a lot to get this data from all these different tools. And it also makes hard for collaboration. So having different tools just it's very trivial, but when you have many different tools in your organization, some people will be more familiar with one, some people will be more familiar with the other. It won't be the same playing ground for all the employees, all the people in your organization. So it can make it difficult. You have a lot of context switches between these applications, and pretty much that's it. So these are the main issues we see in the industry right now. But what do companies want to achieve regardless of what is their DevOps solution, right? So this is also something that we asked actually our customers and take some surveys from the whole industry. And these are the 4 main points that we identified, that these are the main points that most of the companies want to achieve by using a DevOps tool, right? Be it GitLab, be it a do-it-yourself solution, be it whatever. These are the main points. So making their developers more productive, that's obvious, I would say. If your developers are more productive, you will be able to develop software and deliver software to your customers much faster. Measure the productivity and efficiency. So as I said, if you have an overview of what's happening inside your projects, inside your organization, you can optimize your workflow much better. You can spend time with stuff that matters and decrease the amount of time spent on stuff that just simply doesn't. Also, a very important point that we see in the industry, especially in the past couple of years, I assume you are, if not familiar, but at least heard about these vulnerabilities like Log4j or the SolarWinds hack from the past couple of years. So securing the software supply chain, securing the whole, not just the applications themselves, so not just the application that you run in production, securing that is, I would say, a baseline now, hopefully, at least, but like securing the whole process of getting to production. So like the development process itself is really important to be able to track where your dependencies are coming from, who are your vendors. It's getting more and more important for all the companies who are developing software. And also accelerate cloud migration. That's a motion that we see in the whole industry. More and more people and companies are going to public or private clouds. That's very important for reducing your costs in IT operations and just taking advantage of the scaling of the cloud. This is something that we also see a lot of times. So I would say these are the 4 main points. So we already saw how the industry works by and large right now, what are the main issues with how companies are doing DevOps right now. And we also saw in this slide, okay, but what really companies are trying to achieve by doing DevOps, by using DevOps tools. And for my last slide, before we jump into the actual demo, I would just like to make the case for GitLab. And obviously, this was a long preparation for saying that GitLab is the tool you need, obviously. So I'm from GitLab, I will sell GitLab, and that's what I'm doing right now. So GitLab is essentially my company's response to all of these issues and all of these aspirations, goals. So that's what we are trying to do with GitLab, essentially. That's what GitLab is, the product is for us. Because GitLab has a very unique approach in the whole industry. Not anybody else is doing what we are doing. So GitLab, on the application level, it's really just one application. It's not a set of tools integrated together, but it's literally on the code level. So if you're a software engineer, GitLab is literally one code base. It has all the features for doing development and operations. And as this slide, at this diagram, I really like this diagram with the shield behind the whole DevOps lifecycle. So what GitLab does, it's bringing security through the whole life cycle of DevOps. So being one platform, one application, it's really easy to incorporate security as a feature into all of these different parts or phases of the life cycle. So if you are using GitLab, you can be sure that security is there, not just in the coding part, not just in the building part, pipelines. It's there everywhere in each step. And this just facilitates better insights. As I said, if you have just one tool, so imagine instead of having 10 different databases with data about how you do software development, just having one database and doing reporting on that one. And on top of that, GitLab can do that out of the box. So with GitLab, you don't need to pull the data out of that database, create some reports. It's literally there on the UI of the actual application. It increases your efficiency, your productivity. You don't have to switch between, as a developer, so you don't have to switch between 10 different tools or 2 different tools. Even that could be very taxing in the long run. Everything is one UI, one application, as I will show you in this demo. If you would like to, you can literally just use one browser tab for everything. So literally just one browser tab and do the whole life cycle there. Increases productivity because you don't spend time with playing around with the tools you are supposed to use. You just use them and the tools are just there. And you spend time as a software engineer with developing your software. Ease of adoption, that's very important. So having one tool for the whole organization makes it very easy to switch between teams if you need to, or onboard new people. So let's say you hire somebody new and they knew already GitLab from a previous company, they can get productive like not immediately, obviously, they still need to learn your code, your way of working with application code, but like the tool itself will be familiar from end to end, from idea to production, as I said. And that's pretty much it. So I hope I was able to make the case for GitLab. I was able to put in context why GitLab is a great tool and how it can help you. And now let me just switch gears, switch into GitLab itself and show you how does it look like in practice, right? So all that I talked about, how does that look when you put this in practice? And this diagram, I would say, I don't like to spend too much time with it. This is just an overview, what we will do in the next part of this session. So it's a very busy slide, but it shows great. It shows very accurately, I would say, what GitLab is capable of. So you can really start with, on the left side, planning your work, creating merge requests, doing the whole iteration work in your merge request, push fixes, do the security scanning, deploying into production, deploying into test environments, and then merging and deploying into production. So that's what we will, basically not all of this. So for example, we won't look at epics and milestones, but we will start here at the issue part and walk through more or less the whole thing. So let me just do that. Okay. So what we are looking at right now, this is excuse me, a very simple project. Essentially, it's a hello world application, I would say, Node.js application, extremely simple. So I can actually show you how that looked like in production already. I deployed it into production. This is it. This is the application we are looking at. So you cannot go simpler than this. It's literally the Express Node.js framework. Those of you who are working with Node.js might know it. It's a simple web server implementation, essentially. And this application is doing just that. It's just returning one simple page, this one that you see here. So it's admittedly a very simple application, but it's complex enough that I can show you all the features and how you work with GitLab. So what you can see on the screen is the project view of GitLab. It's very similar to all the other DevOps tools, or I would say code repository tools. So the default view of a project is obviously your source code here. But there are many different features here on the left side. So that is the navigation part. If you are familiar with computer software overall, I would say the UI wouldn't cause any troubles. Excuse me. So this is how it looks like. And I would just like to, for the sake of this demo, a little bit of role play. So in this role play, I would play as a software engineer, let's imagine, which wouldn't be so far from the actual reality. So let's say I'm a software engineer. Let's say I'm back from vacation, right? I just spent 2 weeks in the beautiful island of Crete in Greece. I don't care about what's happening on my projects for the 2 weeks, obviously, very healthily, switch off from work. But I'm back at work and I need to get productive as fast as possible. That's my goal here. I don't want to spend my whole Monday, or in this case, Tuesday, with just picking up on stuff, what's happening. And let's see how GitLab can help me with that. And let's see how GitLab can enable me to get productive like immediately as soon as I'm back at my computer. So to start the whole journey, right, as I put it out here in the slide, let's just start with the issues. So let me just switch to that. And issues is a feature of GitLab. I mean, for some people, issues might be a bit confusing. So let me just put that out of the picture. An issue in the context of GitLab doesn't really mean that it's a problem or something like that. At least, I don't know about Polish, but in Hungarian, when you say an issue, that essentially means a problem. So that can get confusing very quickly. In case of GitLab, it's just a single smallest piece of work that you track. Essentially, that's what an issue means. And as you can see on my screen, an issue board is nothing special, really. It's more like a Kanban board. If you work with any kind of project management tool, you would be most likely very familiar with this setup, where you have columns for each stage of your issues, and you can just drag issues like cards in between these states. So I set up a very simple setup here. So we have an open, a doing, and a close column. So basically waiting for work needs to be done, work being done, and work done. Essentially, these are the 3 columns here. So I, as a software engineer, again, role-playing situation, I come to my computer, open GitLab. Okay, what's going on? What's happening in my project? And I can just see immediately that, okay, I have a task ongoing. Okay, this is a bit schizophrenic, right? Because it's me who is assigned to this task and me who is also looking at it. Obviously, in a real project, other people would be assigned to tasks, not just you. In this case, it's just me in this project. But I can see immediately there's an ongoing task here, and there's one open for picking up. So let me just start with this one. What's happening here? So I just open this one. Okay, Peter, let's say that's another Peter, not me, is working on this. He's doing fine. There's also merge request connected. Okay, let's just forget about this. I'm just back from work. I don't want to get involved in this task. I assume that they are doing well without me. Let me go back and let me just look at the board again. Okay, there's a task that nobody's working on. So let's just see how is that. If it's not too complex, I will just take it on. Good one for starting the week, right? So change title. Okay, so I need to change the title of the application to GitLab demo instead of Express. Okay, let me just say I want to change it to Hostersi demo instead of GitLab demo. And again, you just saw how I'm interacting with the rest of the team. So this was a work item created by somebody else who defined this work. And let's say it's a very flat organization structure. So I, as a software engineer, have the rights to just change a work item without asking anybody. Let's just assume that. And here you can already see, and the rest of my team can see what's happened here. So Peter just changed the description. And if they are curious, if they can see exactly what happened here. Again, just fostering the level of collaboration in between your team members, because everybody can be aware of what's happening exactly inside your project. So I just changed that. Yeah, it's a nice one. I like this one. So I will just assign it to myself. I will work on this one. And I just go back to the board. I could do this elsewhere, but I just want to show it here. So I want to demonstrate for the rest of my team that I'm working on this. So I just moved it to the doing column. So whenever next comes to this board, they will see that, okay, there's no tasks for picking up, and these are both being worked on. So I just moved it here. Everybody can see that it's being in the doing label. I can have a conversation here if I would like to. So if other people think other things about this issue, they can have a conversation here, like in a chained manner, like in a forum or in Slack, by the way, or so in some chat UI. And the way it works, like in GitLab, you have issues, what we are just seeing on the screen or what we just saw. And issues are a place to collaborate about ideas. So plan the work. So plan what needs to be done. But here you cannot really work together on the code itself. To do that, you need another feature of GitLab, which is called merge requests. So here I will just create a merge request, and I will explain to you how those two things come together. How are they related? So let me just create a merge request for this issue. Assign the merge request to myself, so other people will see that I am working on this one. And I just want to pause a little bit and check if we have any questions right now in the chat. Anything that you are more curious about? Nothing so far, as far as I can see. Okay. But again, just a friendly reminder, if you're curious about anything, please just raise a hand or just ask away. I'm more than happy to answer those questions. Back to the demo. So what I want to demonstrate here, how in GitLab you can effectively collaborate. So we have the issue view, which we are already familiar with. This is the place to talk about work. So like plan the work, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. We need to have a feature like this. We need to have a feature like that. And the merge request is actually deceptively similar, by the way. So if I show you here, the UI is kind of same. So we have a title, we have a description, you can have a conversation, you can have labels, milestones, time tracking. Then what's really the difference between the two? And the difference between the two is that a merge request, if you are using another DevOps tool, I'm sure you are familiar. So merge request is basically the place where you can have a discussion about the work itself. So like the code itself, not the work itself necessarily, but the actual software development itself. So in GitLab, the standard way of working with GitLab is that you have issues and merge requests running in parallel. You can do it in other ways, but that's like the out-of-the-box experience, so to say. And in an issue, you talk about what needs to be done and plan that stuff. And merge request, you actually do the code changes. And for example, here, I cannot see that right now because I don't have any code changes, but let me just do some code changes to facilitate this task. And then you will see how those two map to each other. So the planning part and the coding part. And to do that, I will use a very nice feature of GitLab, which is called a Web IDE. It's basically, if you are familiar with this, it's Visual Studio Code running in the browser. Very cool, by the way, because it's an Electron application. So it's very easy to run it in the browser. The point here is that, as I said previously during the slide deck, in GitLab, you can really work the whole DevOps lifecycle in just your browser. Now you can even do the development work in your browser, which in my opinion as a software engineer is rather cool. So you don't need to check out the code in your local machine. Obviously, full disclaimer, as I said, I'm a software engineer, so I know exactly there's a limitation to these kind of tools. So obviously, if you are, let's say, developing a Windows driver in C++, obviously you won't be able to do that in this web IDE, right? So I'm not trying to sell you snake oil here. This tool is really good for web stuff. So if you are developing a classic web application, this web IDE might actually be able to replace your desktop development environment. If you are doing something that's closer to the machine, or I don't know, mobile application development, yeah, you won't be able to do it here because you need an emulator, you need to connect to a real device, etc., etc. So just setting the expectation, what you can expect from this. But for example, if you want to make a quick change to the documentation, to the README, or for example, in this case, when I literally just need to change a couple of lines and I have tests set up, I can just do it here without even switching away from my browser. As you can see, I'm still just showing my browser window here. It's just the same Chrome that I'm using. So I will just go here. Let me just change the title. What's my job here? Change it from Express to Hostersi demo. Okay, let me do that. Switch here. Done. And I'm just committing my changes. Change, title, commit and push. And I will just push to the branch that was created for me in that merge request. I can just close this one, so I don't need this anymore. If I refresh this page, you will see that in the activity history, GitLab is showing me that something happened, right? A push have been made with some changes, and I can immediately see those changes here. So as you can see, these are the changes that I just made. Awesome. So everybody in my team can be aware of the fact that I'm working on this. That's what the issue is for, right? Everybody can see Peter is working on this. And if they are curious, let me just close this one. From the issue, they can immediately just switch over to my merge request and see what am I doing actually, right? So the two views complementing each other really nicely here. So there's a commit, there are changes, there are pipelines running, and let me just talk about that. So if we still don't have any questions, which I would take as a sign of goodness, okay?
No, there are no questions of yours.
So far, so good. I hope that means that everything that I'm talking about is clear, and it's not a sign that it is not.
No, I'm not a technical person. I'm understanding what you are trying to explain. So I think you're doing this just great, just fine.
Thank you, Andre, also for the reinforcement in chat. That calms my heart. So let's just switch to the next part, right? So we already covered issues, assigning an issue, creating a merge request, pushing code. And let's just switch to this part here. And I would say this is the core of GitLab, at least for me as a software engineer, certainly. Obviously, if you're a test engineer, security advisor, you might say something else, and that's completely valid. For me as a software engineer, the real value, the real coolness, so to say, of GitLab is essentially this part, when you iterate on the work and check your code at each step and making sure that everything is safe, secure, compliant, so you can react to problems before they come back from production and bite you. That's what I would like to spend essentially the rest of this demonstration about. So this part we will look at right now. And to do that, so far we've been looking at this change title stuff, right? I would just like to switch gears a little bit, because the thing is that, as you can see, the pipelines have started to run already. But these pipelines, before I get into the details of what is a pipeline and how do they work like, they take some time to finish. And I don't want to stay here for 10 minutes. It's approximately 10 minutes. And I don't want you to look at some pipelines for 10 minutes. And I mean, I can tell jokes for 10 minutes, but that wouldn't be the point of this demonstration. But I was thinking ahead, and I created another issue you might have seen here in the doing table, so the redesign colors ones. It's pretty similar to the one that we've been talking about so far. That the task is different here, so I just created different stuff to do here, but I already created the merge request here, and the pipeline's already finished here. So here we can actually take a look at what does it mean to work with pipelines, because they already finished here, so we don't need to wait 10 minutes. That's the reason why we are switching to another issue and another merge request here. But everything that I showed you so far applies still. It's just the task here is not to change the title, but to change the colors. So right, I showed you previously that in production we have this white background, black text, and this task is about changing the text to white and changing the background to orange, like the color of GitLab. That's the only difference here, but it's needed for me to do this, to talk about the pipelines to you, and we don't need to wait for the pipelines to run. So let me just switch to the merge request for this task. So what we are looking at here, still a merge request, still some changes made here, right? So I changed the actual colors here, similarly as the previous one. Is just instead of the title, I changed the color here. There are commits and there are pipelines. And that's what I would like to talk about. Please ignore this one. I just canceled the running of this pipeline, not relevant for this demonstration at all. This is the pipeline that we will talk about. So what are pipelines? For those of you who are not familiar with DevOps overall or CI/CD, pipelines are a way of automating the task of a developer. So classically, okay, thank you, Camille. So basically, pipelines are automating a task of a developer. So let's say before this whole DevOps industry started a couple of tens of years ago, this stuff that pipelines are doing right now have been done by developers. So you compile the source code on your computer, you copied it to a server, and it was brittle, because if something that you need to do 10 times a day or even just 10 times a week, there's a chance you will mess it up. I mean, that's why I'm not doing my own taxes, right? I have an accountant who does it for me because I will just mess it up. That's the point of the pipelines as well. So not do it by hand, do it by a professional, in this case, not an accountant, but by a machine. So you basically describe for GitLab what needs to be done in a machine readable way, and GitLab will do it for you. That's what a pipeline is on a very high level. And that's what we will look at right now. So in this project, I have a feature enabled, which is called Auto DevOps. This is actually, in my opinion, a very cool feature, and not that many other companies or many other DevOps tools do or know. So Auto DevOps is, without, again, selling snake oil, the point of Auto DevOps is that you enable it for a project. GitLab will look at your project, look at your source code, look at the languages that you are using. In this case, it's pure JavaScript, so it's easy for GitLab. Look at the language, recognize that, and create a default set of pipelines for you. So like a very simple not a very simple pipeline, that's the point, a very complex pipeline, more or less tailored for your project. And it's important to put this on the table that this works perfectly if you have a, let's say, very standardized project, so just one language or one framework. As soon as you have a monorepo set up where you have many different applications, you do something custom, obviously Auto DevOps won't work so magically. It might do something for you, but it won't be able to set up a full pipeline, that's for sure. But in this case, so in these kind of projects, when you are starting new, let's say you are new to GitLab, you want to learn how pipelines work, Auto DevOps is, I would say, a savior. So for me, actually, when I joined GitLab to learn how pipelines works, that's how I started. So I just enabled Auto DevOps on project and just started to look at, okay, what's going on here? And I can show you the same. So I go to the pipelines and just open this one. So this pipeline have run for the main branch, basically my production application. And without getting into too much into the details, you can see here it's doing a ton of stuff, really a ton of them. So it's building your application, testing it, many different tests, and we will shortly look at the result of those tests. And it does a couple of other stuff, which are, I would say, very deep into GitLab. So I won't get into the details of what's exactly happening here. I will just show you what's the result of that. The case, what I'm trying to make here really with pipelines is that you can go really crazy with GitLab pipelines. At the end of the day, they are just code. So as much as you can code a pipeline as complex as you would like to be. I've seen some pipelines, the ones that like in cartoons, when you can't even figure out where it's starting, where it ends, and magically it works for those companies. So I would say the outer space is the limit here, essentially. But the point here is what I'm trying to make with Auto DevOps, this feature of GitLab, that if you know zero about pipelines, you can just enable that. It will create a complex enough pipeline for you to see what are the limits, what I can do with GitLab, what are all the features of GitLab, and you can use it like a starter pack. So like a starting point, and you can modify this. I could remove some tests from here, which I don't care about, add my own tests if there are something that's not covered here. So that's the point, like a starting point for pipelines, because doing pipelines from scratch, even if you are a software engineer, can be very daunting because you need to learn a lot of concepts though. And this is just doing it from the other way around. You get a more or less complex pipeline, you can understand it on the high level, and you can dig deeper into the specific parts. And it just makes it much more easier, in my opinion, to get started. So in this case, the way the pipelines work, it runs on the main branch in each change, essentially. So for each change of your production application, and it's also running for your merge request. So if I come back here to the redesign colors one, you can see that it have been run here as well, and it produced some test results. And this is essentially the last part of this one. So we talk about issues, merge requests, pushing code, automate pipelines, and I would like to talk about the security part, so the scanning and pushing fixes to your code. Basically, what we are looking at here is that the pipeline has run for this merge request, and it generated some tests. And these ones you can see here. We call these widgets, if I remember correctly, so like a bunch of information about the code that you want to bring into production. So the merge request is a place where you are working on code that is not in production yet, right? So my production is still black on white, not white on orange. But here you can see that those changes, what these changes will mean to your project on the security and code quality and performance level. So you can, this is what I was talking about previously, you can spot issues before they hit production. So let's say, in this case, we won't see any issues. I just changed 2 colors, right? So it's not like I changed something big. There won't be any impact on production. But I think you can easily imagine a change that would change, I don't know, change an algorithm in your application, integrate some AI capabilities into your project. Those are very big changes, and they can have performance implication. And instead of putting your code in front of your customer saying that, okay, these are the new features, go ahead, play with them, and they have some performance issues, they break, they might lose data because you introduced the bug, you can catch those problems way before that. So you don't say that, okay, I made some changes, go ahead. You say that before I even push it to production, before I even give it to customers, I can catch all of these issues here in the merge request. So this is what these widgets are all about, like reporting on the status of your code before you put it in front of other people, so to say.
Peter, we have a comment from Camille. Okay, pipeline equals automation of complex plus boring repeating task. What
perfect.
do you think?
That's a perfect summary, I would say. You just made the point, Camille. Thank you. No, that's functional. Thank you. So yeah, and in this case, the rest of the demo will be about, okay, we have these pipelines, they do a bunch of stuff. How do you, as a user of GitLab, can see the result of those pipelines? So one way of seeing that is in the merge request immediately, again, catching issues before they reach production. But at the same time, these pipelines are running for your production code as well. And then you can see what's going on in production. What is the status of my application in production? And that's what I would like to show here. But before I do that, I just want to show you how I can close this merge request. So in this case, let's say I'm a software engineer, right? I am coming to this and I see, okay, Peter is working on this. Everything is green, nice. I go to the issue. Everything is checked there. Okay, awesome. So, okay, should I merge this? Should I make this part of the main branch? Should I make this part of production now? The checks are good. Okay, we have some degradation in the performance, but full disclaimer, this is a sample project. There are some, so the performance detection is better for bigger project. It's such a small project that even such a small change could give you false positives. So this is essentially that. I mean, not fully false positive. There are 2% change that's like nothing. So I will just ignore it. I just say that performance is good, compliance good, security good, code quality haven't changed. I would say we are ready to production. But before that, I want to show you one more cool feature of GitLab pipelines that, so we saw our production application running already. So the way you can access that, you go to deployments, environments, and click on open. So I have a production here, open, and this is what is running in production, right? But I'm curious about how this change will look like in production. So I changed the colors of my application. How does that look like in action? And this is called review apps in GitLab. So what GitLab is doing for each merge request, for each commit that you make, each change you make, it tests your application for security, performance, quality, etc. But it's also with Auto DevOps enabled. This is part of Auto DevOps, which I talked about previously. It will deploy your application to a test environment. And in this case, I can just share that. And this is how it looks like. So this is a test environment, not available to your customers. The customers only see this one, right? Your production. But I, as a developer, I can check, okay, after I merge this one, how it will look like in production. So I don't need to just check the code. Okay, what happened here? I don't need to check out the code myself, build the application to see for myself how it will look like in production. I can, again, without leaving my browser, just see it in production. I mean, in not production, a test environment, which is very similar to production, but this is something that your customers have no access to you. So imagine you made a mistake and you changed the background not to orange, but to red. It will be very easy to catch it here, right? Because I just opened the review app and see, okay, hey, it's not orange, it's red. We cannot get it into production. And then I check the code and I would say, okay, it's not orange, it's red. In this case, it's orange. That was the task. So I am happy, I can merge it. And I could verify it again before putting it in front of customers. Obviously, a change of color, not a big issue, but again, you can imagine we needed to change the whole login page of our application. Catching that after putting it in front of customers would be a big problem. Like your customers can't even log into your application. This is a feature can save you from that. So you could catch that way before your customers are impacted. Okay, so I will just say Mark is ready. This is good to go. And I'm just merging it. What merging means, you put your changes into your main branch, which will be in production shortly. And again, that's by pipelines. So I don't need to do anything. As I see the pipeline, I did the merge, the changes in master, and the pipeline is already running. And there is a pipeline that has failed. Why did that fail? That's also a very important question. So this is our merge request from the beginning of this demo, where I was changing the title, right? I changed the title from Express to Hostersi demo, and we have an issue here. The pipeline has failed, but why is that? So I just click here, and I click here, and you can see our tests have failed. Okay, so I made a change that broke my application, but it's great because it have been caught before it got into production. So this is actually, this is part of the demo. Don't worry about it. I made this fail on purpose. So the point here is that I made a change to my application that broke my tests. And because my tests are broken, I'm not even able to merge it. So even if I want to, I cannot. So even if I mark it as ready, it will say, no, you cannot merge it because you have a failing test. You must fix that. before you want to incorporate this into production. So again, just wanted to point out the power of pipelines, the power of merge requests, that they can catch these problems for you way before you go into production. And that's what happened here. So this failure is fully intentional again. So yeah, the pipeline is running for master. That's nice. We are happy. So I would say we are getting close to the production part. Essentially, we started from an idea, right? An issue, created a merge request for that issue, made some changes to our application, tested our application changes, take a look at the preview. So white background, black text, orange background, white text. And now we are waiting for the pipeline to finish to deploy it into production. And that's it. We came from idea to production in just half an hour, 40 minutes, something like that. So I would say success. But while this is running, we have still like 10 minutes. And in that 10 minutes, I would still like to keep your attention a little bit more, which is the last feature, which I would like to cover, are the security parts. So I was mentioning security multiple times already. We took a look at merge request, how in a merge request you can have security. How does that catch problems before it go into production? But what GitLab is really good at is not just securing your changes, but also securing your production application. And that's what I would like to show you, why we are waiting for that deployment into production. And that group of features is the security and compliance ones. As you can see, I hovered over the menu item, and you can see there are tons of stuff here. So I won't walk through all of them, because for that we need, I don't know, at least 1 hour, maybe 2. So I just want to take a look at the features of GitLab security-wise, which I would say the most important, or not even most important, because again, that's very much depends on the kind of application you are developing, but the kind of features that I see through my partners, like the great Hostersi, what our customers are using, right? So I would like to show you the features that I would say get the most adaptation from the partner, the market. And those features are the vulnerability report, the dependency list, and the license compliance. So we will shortly take a look at these, and that will be it. But disclaimer before I continue, I just want to draw attention to the fact that everything that we saw so far, all the features that I showed you, were part of either the free version. So there are 3 different licenses of GitLab, right? Free, premium, and ultimate. What I showed so far were free and premium. What I'm showing right now is ultimate. So security is always ultimate. Just a full disclosure that if you are using GitLab and you don't have an ultimate license and you don't see these features, it's because of that. So ultimate is really about security, just putting it on the table. So yeah, let's just start with the vulnerability report. I think it's a very well-described name. So the vulnerability report is about giving you an overview of what's going wrong in your application, I would say. So in this case, this application is insecure on purpose, right? So this template project, which I choose for the sake of this demo, is insecure on purpose. So I can demo to you how does it look like in action. So the vulnerability report is about pointing out what are the security issues you have in production. We had a similar view in the merge request, right? But that was about catching these issues before they go into production. If you already have issues in production, these will show up here, very describing, so high, medium, low, critical, unknown. So you have different categories for each issue. You can prioritize the fixing of those. Obviously, for info and unknown and low, you might not want to spend your time with. If you get something in the medium, high, critical part, okay, then maybe put some time away from developing new features and just focus on that before somebody gets hurt because of these issues. And yeah, that's how it looks like. So you get a summary. I can just get into, for example, this one. This is an issue that my code has. Not technically my code, but actually a dependency of my code. You can tell by that the location is not in my source code, but in the package lock.json, which in case of Node.js is the place where you store your dependencies for third-party software packages. And here it also tells me what is the issue. So I can have some links I can go through where I can read more about these problems that these packages have. And it also gives me a solution, which is really nice. So I don't need to research that much. I just go here. Okay, what's going on here? Okay, so my package is on 3.0.0. And if I upgrade it to at least 3.0.1, I will be safe. Okay, that's cool. That's an easy fix I can do. I won't do it right now because I don't want to go through the whole motion again. You already saw how does that work, merge requests, etc. I just want to point out that from this point, I could create a new issue from this security vulnerability. So I just say create issue. It will fill out the template for me. I just say create issue. And if I go back to my boards, I can see immediately that, okay, we have an issue to work on. And this way, I just closed the whole DevOps lifecycle, DevSecOps lifecycle, right? So I developed some code, got this into production. Production reported some issues. So I created a new issue based on that problem. I will create a new merge request, deploy to production again, and you have this infinite lifecycle of DevSecOps through these features. And that is the beauty of GitLab. So that's what I really mean when I say GitLab is the one platform, one integrated platform. I just did the full circle, right? Started from an issue, deployed to production, and came back to a new issue. So I can start the whole life cycle again. And that's the whole point here with this feature of the vulnerability report, that it can close this whole loop. That's pretty much it, I would say, about the vulnerability report. Important feature to point out, you can export this. It will be a CSV file. So let's say you have a third party or you have some organizations inside your company who needs this report. You can just export it and give it to them. If you can't, or if you don't want to give them access to your GitLab instance, they can still see the data. And you can also automate this. So software engineers, warning to you, or not warning, or disclaimer, that if you have a automation, you can just put this there in the script and this report will be generated automatically. Like we have customers who are doing this reporting, I don't know, every midnight, right? So by the morning, they have always a fresh report in some third-party system. This is how you do that. And yeah, pretty much that's it about the vulnerability report. Sorry, this is the most horrible English word as a Hungarian. Like, I don't know any other English word that is more difficult for me to pronounce. Fun fact.
Don't worry, I'm often not able to say that.
Right? I think it's something Eastern European, right? It just doesn't make sense to our languages. I don't know, really, but it's horrible. Same in Polish. Okay, that's great. I feel the community. That's good to know, because this is horrible. And imagine, I have to say this like 10 times at least each day when I'm talking to partners and customers. And I need an AI that could pronounce it for me. Maybe that could help.
Yeah, you can record your voice, and
that's the point, right? That's it. Maybe that's what I would do. Like playback, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I can imagine during the meeting, wait for it, play.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah. Okay, so two features left I would like to really show you, and pretty much that would be it. So the next one is the dependency list. This is actually similar to the vulnerability report, just a different view of your application. So the dependency list is really about, as I showed you previously, the vulnerability report showed me something that was a problem in a dependency, not my own code, but a third-party code that I consume, that I use from another vendor. But that was more about the security problems in my code. The dependency list is not really about, I mean, it's showing that there are issues in these packages, but this view is not really focusing on that. So it's, again, a different view on the same set of information, my security of my application. But the goal here is really to give you the example I make here. So it's called the software bill of materials. A bill of materials is basically a list of all the things that went into your product. So I don't know, in case of a bottle of milk, right? Most likely your bill of materials will be glass and milk. obviously much more than that, but you see how much I know about the milk industry, but you get the point. That's what a bill of material is. So translate it into the digital world. The software bill of material is essentially a list of code that you don't produce, but you consume it from outside of your organization. So third-party packages, third-party vendors providing for you. But still, since you are including this in your own application, these are part of your application as well. So if you have a customer who is using your application, they are indirectly though, but still using those third-party packages. So if you want to be secure, you need to know exactly what's going into your product, what's going into the sausage, as we say in Hungarian, right? That's what the software bill of material about is, just for software. And this is just a list of all the stuff, as you can see, a ton of stuff, because it's Node.js, so it's dependency on dependency of dependency. But I have a full list of what's going on. And this feature is actually very important. So this feature came to life because of the requirements from the US government. Because if you work with the US government, so you provide some application for the US government, they require you to provide the software bill of materials. It's basically just as in food, right? So you go to the groceries, you buy something, and you see on the packaging what's inside. That's what the US government requires from their own vendors in the software space. And that's why we implemented this feature. But obviously, even if your customer is not the US government, they might require this. So for example, some German customers are already doing that. And all over Europe, it's getting more and more traction. So it's for that as well. So for delivering software, it's also very useful. And similarly to the vulnerability report, you can export this. You can automate the export as well. So again, if you have people who are curious about this, like your customers, obviously you won't give access to your GitLab instance to your customers. But here you can just export it and give it to your customers. Okay, this is my application, and this is the report. Here you go. Or you can automate it, put it in a package all together. So very nice feature, I would say. And yeah, just closing it off, the last one, the license compliance, is less about security and more about compliance, as the name implies. So this is about an issue that comes up sometimes, not all the times, but when it comes up, it can bite you really bad. So the company who is developing software. So let's imagine you are developing software and you use these third-party dependencies. And most of these are open source on the internet. Everybody can access them, right? So free to use. But some of these applications, these packages have a license that says, if you use this package that I'm providing for you for free, and the source code is here, so it's open. But if you decide to use this in your own application, you must make your own application open source as well. The most popular license is called I think it's the GNU3 license, which is like this. And many open source libraries actually use this license. But imagine that if you're a private company creating a software that you don't want to open source, right? Because it might be harmful for your business. You just simply don't want to put it on the open, and you accidentally use this package, then that can get you into legal trouble, right? Because you are not complying with what you promised to do, that you will make it open source. That's what license compliance about is. So in license compliance, you can configure the license of your own project and say that all the licenses that are not compatible with mine, don't let them merge, right? So similarly in the merge request, when I have this issue right now here, let's imagine I would have a third-party license that would make my application to become open source. I can just ban that, like say, okay, that cannot go, and then the merge request will fail. So the merge request you won't be able to merge those changes into your master, because that might hurt your company at the end of the day. So again, another feature, which is we put this in the same category as security stuff, because in our point of view, that's why it's called security and compliance. So we are trying to protect the users of GitLab from a whole bunch of issues that either security-wise, so a hacker can destroy your application, get access to your customers' data. That's the security part. And also from compliance checks. So all the things that can get your company into legal trouble. That's what we are helping with. And I would say pretty much that's it. So we did a full circle here. We went through the whole life cycle, review apps, approvals, we merged. And I would say we can actually see that our production environment now is updated, or at least should be. Fingers crossed. Yes, it's updated. So we did the full circle, right? We went from idea, and I'm logged out, to production. So security before everything else. So from idea to deploying into production, we just closed the full circle, and pretty much that's it. So I hope this was useful. I don't know if we have any questions. If there are, please feel free to ask. I'm really happy to have a discussion about anything that you saw. If not, pretty much that's it. That's what I wanted to show you. I hope I was able to demonstrate the full circle. So like going really from idea to production. How easy is that? How streamlined that? Yeah, and I hope it was as useful for you as fun it was for me to do this demonstration.
I have one question. Somebody have to leave a little bit earlier, but I received it on LinkedIn. Where is this moment that company is supposed to think about going to ultimate, from premium to ultimate? Where is this moment that companies should talk about this with GitLab or some kind of partner?
I would say the ultimate is the best. So again, I'm from GitLab, so take everything what I say with a grain of salt, right? I have rose-tinted glasses, but I'm trying to give an objective answer here. So I would say the real value of ultimate is that you have one tool for everything, because these days, as I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, you have these kind of issues, Log4j, SolarWinds, those will be there. It doesn't matter if you do security checks or not, you can have these issues regardless. So I would say it's not like an optional thing to do security in your software development lifecycle now. It's like the basic stuff. So 20 years ago, pipelines were not a thing. 10 years ago, pipelines were the basic that you do all the time. That's what we call DevOps. Now we call it DevSecOps, and the sec part is really like doing security in each and every step. So you will need to do security anyway. And you have essentially, I would say, with GitLab, two choices. You go with premium, which is cheaper than ultimate, but then you won't have the security features. You will need some security solutions, some third party. Coming back to my diagram here, right? So you will end up with something like this. One piece will be GitLab, and you will need one or two, I don't know how many tools to do the security for you. And at the end of the day, even through premium licenses cheaper, you might end up with a higher bill because you pay for GitLab Premium and this tool and that tool, and it might be actually more expensive than Ultimate. Or you can choose to go with Ultimate out of the box. You will have all the features of Premium plus security. It will be admittedly more expensive than Premium itself, but you don't have this diagram anymore. You just have GitLab. You just have this diagram, right? And at the end of the day, you might end up paying less actually for having the same set of features. So that would be my full answer here.
And people in team will use only one tool, then don't have to learn how to use 2 tools, 3 tools, 4 tools.
Exactly.
So you're not
that's the point.
spending
Exactly.
more time on learning how to use new tools, new features in several things, only in one.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. And imagine something that happened to me in my previous job. We were not using GitLab. I won't say what we were using, but let's imagine we were using this setup. Everything in one tool, security in a third party. And what happened actually multiple times, not all the time, but multiple times enough that it could make the developer team actually very angry, is that imagine that the tool that you do everything in got an update, but the third-party tool that you were using for security did not. And because of this, the integration broke, and you couldn't work for, I don't know, even days sometimes, because this integration wasn't there, and the security checks didn't work, so you couldn't release into production because you weren't sure that it's secure, right? If you have something like GitLab where everything is in one package, everything has one version, if there's an update to GitLab, that's it. Everything is updated. Security, everything. You don't have to worry about your integrations breaking in between these different versions. So just connecting back to what you said, Carolina, again, like saving precious time, because at the end of the day, that's the most precious thing that you have as a developer, or by the way, as a human being, right?
And knowledge and time.
Yeah, exactly. And that's it. That's it. So yeah, that would be the full spectrum answer to that. I hope it was an adequate answer.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, I don't have any other questions from the audience. So I think that would be it for today.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Then thank you very much for having me. Thank you, Carolina, for supporting me, and thank you, the audience, for attending. And I really hope that it was, again, as useful for you as fun was it for me. And if you have any remaining questions about GitLab, about anything that you heard or see today, please feel free to contact our great partners, again, Hostersi in Poland, who can help you with all of your GitLab related stuff. So please put the same trust in them as we GitLab do in them.
Thank you very much. If anybody wants to know something more about GitLab and licenses, premium and ultimate, we can have meeting together with your team, and I can also invite Peter to just talk about this, find the best solution for your company and make your work better, faster, more efficient.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not a technical person, and I think I understand quite a lot.
Great. That's great. I'm happy. That's the goal. Really, that's the goal here. That's the goal.
Okay, so that will be it. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for this presentation, and have a lovely one. Have a lovely day, everyone.
Yes, have a nice one. See you.
Thank you.